What's up, guys? It's Jimbo here, and today we're taking a little bit of a break from World of Warcraft to bring us a little video here on Diablo 4. We've recently had the date of the beta announced to us, and that's going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then today we've had a video just released by the dev team on what we're going to see in the world of Sanctuary. Now, that's very interesting to me because I want to know what the game is going to feel like. And they've done a very good job over time of releasing us these videos of different parts of the game. And I think today's video did a really good job at explaining what it's going to be like for our character going through these different zones and how immersive it's going to make it feel for us to go through these areas. And I think that's a very important part of the game, especially with them already letting us know that their plan is to get us immersed back into the world like they did with Diablo 2 so many years ago, making it a more gruesome, gritty, dark world and making you feel like you're in it. Something that they didn't really capture with Diablo 3. Speaking on Diablo 3, the final season of that will be coming out this week, and we will be playing it. I haven't played Diablo 3 in quite a few seasons as it got very repetitive, but luckily enough for me, I've been away from the game long enough that I feel like it's a good time to go back, and with it being paired as being the final season for Diablo 3, there really couldn't be a better time. Now, let's jump in and take a look at this video from the dev team called Diablo 4 Inside the Game, the World of Sanctuary. Let's take a look. Alrighty, 7 minutes, 39 seconds, already off to a good start. The game looks fantastic. Now, I will say, if you're somebody who doesn't like pausing videos, I'm sorry. We will be pausing the video to talk about things that they say, though I will try to get through it as quickly as possible. All games in today's video game world look great, right? That used to be something that we could use as a standard when we're looking at reviewing video games, be like, wow, this game really looks fantastic. It's a step above everything else. We're at a point right now where all new video games look great. Obviously, if they're not trying to look great, right, like Vampire Survivors or something like that, that doesn't count. But all AAA games that are trying to appeal on a graphical level have the ability to do so and look fucking amazing while they do it. So I say the game looks great, but that's not me giving it points, you know? I'm just pointing it out. Let's take a look here.
Sanctuary is the world in which the story of Diablo takes place, and it's the battleground for the souls of humanity and the fight between angels and demons.
Sanctuary is a vast world, and there'll always be something new.
I will say the combat looks good and it sounds good. And what I mean by that is it sounds impactful. You can hear when your player is hitting the enemies, you can hear the hits. And that's something that some games do miss. And honestly, that's something that kind of, a difference that you kind of feel in going from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3. So if they're going back to that Diablo 2 style of every individual hit does feel kind of impactful compared to Diablo 3, where you're whirlwinding or strafing through just thousands of enemies and it doesn't feel that amazing, that would be fantastic.
In every area, like hordes of enemies, safe haven towns, resources to gather, events, quests, and more.
I like the dark grittiness they're going back to.
We wanted to
here.
bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like.
How do I get one of those jackets? That looks fucking amazing. Look at that thing. Holy.
Diablo 2, the much darker style. It's very macabre.
The artists and designers have had so much fun working on it, and it's just been a joy to create for us.
How would
You
the
hear those
people
hits with
of
the axe?
Sanctuary show their world? What kinds of art would they use to describe the world? One of the things we really wanted to do was make the game feel like a painting.
Everything was built by a wonderful group of people who love Diablo as much as you do.
Very Diablo 2 feeling there in that scene.
We have 5 unique zones.
Each of the regions has its own kind of flavor and ambient life.
We take a lot of influence from what our concept artists.
Hopefully when they say 5 unique zones, they mean that similar to, how they did in Diablo 2 and even Diablo 3 with the axe. It would be similar to 5 acts, which is what we had in Diablo 2. And I'm going to be honest with you, I can't really remember how many acts there were in Diablo 3 because you didn't have to play through the story but once, and then you have your rifts open after that. hopefully that we're looking at that similar size. That is, while I don't want to have to play through the story on every single character like you had to in Diablo 2, I do want the story to be impactful, and I do want to explore the world, right? I want the game to make me want to explore the world in these big zones, and I'm hoping that they do that. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that I want a bunch of useless side quests in these zones to have to go and do, right? There's a difference between wanting to go and do things in the zones and then having to go do it, because if not, you're just missing out on gear progression, even if it's something that you don't want to do. That's something that World of Warcraft has fallen trap into with their Shadowlands and Battle for Azeroth and other recent expansions. Not so bad in Dragonflight, but you don't want to be forced into having to do something to get a gear progression, but you should want to go and do it because it's fun and you get gear as a reward.
Give us, and I know they take a lot of influence from real life.
There's Kyrgyzstan, which is the sort of desert.
It's amazing with its sweeping sand dunes.
Not a fan of
Scotland, which
sand
is inspired
areas.
by Scotland. Fractured Peaks is inspired by the Carpathian Mountains.
The Dry Steppes is sort of our mountainous desert region, and Hawazar is the swampy region of the south. Whether you're on a mount or on foot, it's a joy to go from one region.
The mount thing does kind of worry me, because the thing is that everybody is a metagamer, right? I mean, we end up metagaming whether we intend to or we don't intend to. That's just the way it is. And this happened in World of Warcraft also, if flying around on your mount, and by flying I mean at speed, not physically flying, if running around on your mount is the best, most efficient way of doing something, that's what everybody is going to do, right? And that's what happened when we added flying into World of Warcraft, is that being down on the ground became pointless, right? Which meant less world PvP, less player interaction, less of everything going on in the world, because there was no reason to be down there. You just fly from point A to point B, and it took a lot of the world out of the game. Now, I do understand that this game is going to be significantly bigger in terms of world size than Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 are, so having a mount is a little more necessary, but I hope that it doesn't detract from the world building aspect of the game.
To the next. Also, the region transitions are really beautiful and stunning to see.
Making sure that it felt sort of geologically true was really important. If you walk from Fractured Peaks into Hawazar, you'll cross all of these waterfalls caused by snowmelt. So you can actually see the snow melting in Fractured Peaks through waterfalls, entering into Hawazar and entering the large basin that fills Hawazar with all of the swamp water.
Oh, that's awesome. And that is a huge part of the world building right there. So you have the snowy peaks, right? This is what they're saying. If you missed that there, you have the snowy peaks up at the top of the mountains, right? And the snow falls down, right? It melts, turns into rivers coming down the mountain, and eventually drains down into the swamp areas, right? So all of the areas feel interconnected. That's huge. You can think of something like Dark Souls, where they did a very good job at making this interconnected world where it doesn't feel like it's segmented. You actually feel like you're in a cohesive world. That's very good for immersion and keeping your focus in the game, and keeping you feeling like you're actually there in the world playing the video game. That's fantastic, and honestly, I don't know what more you can really ask for than that. If you couple that up with the fact that we just recently learned in one of the previous videos that your character model, right, because this is supposed to have one of the best custom character models in Diablo history, maybe Blizzard history, your custom character model will be what you see in the cutscenes, right? You're not going to see some default stock barbarian in the cutscenes. You're going to see your custom barbarian in the cutscenes, right? And that's going to be that is also huge in terms of immersion and world building.
We have all the different environments in the overworld, and we tried to make sure there was some parity with those in the dungeons. We have dungeons that are flooded, and there's like moss everywhere. It very much fits in with that Skazgan environment. Kyrgyzstan is all desert, so we have dungeons.
The AoE of that attack, let me go back to that real quick. The AoE of this attack is what makes me worried about PvP in this game. So one thing that Diablo do, and maybe this is rose tinted on my end because it was in my prime of playing video games, Diablo 2. I was a huge Diablo 2 PvP player, right? Huge Diablo 2 PvP player. And that's my pinnacle of a PvP scenario in a video game. And obviously, no ARPG since then has really been able to capture what Diablo 2 had in the PvP sense. And I know that they're going to have PvP in Diablo 4, and I do hope that they're able to recapture that magic that they had in Diablo 2. I do kind of doubt that, but the size of this whirlwind or cyclone or blade storm type attack that you see here does make me kind of worrisome about that because it takes up the entire screen, right? Which is obviously not great in a PvP kind of scenario.
Everywhere, it very much fits in with that Skazgan environment.
Look at that. So essentially, like, what is your, what's your play around for that in a PvP scenario? And when their attack is literally taking up the whole entire screen. If you try to PvP in Path of Exile, you run into kind of a similar problem where the attacks the AOE's are so big, and obviously you have the problem with the damage numbers too. You just can't PvP in that game because of these things. And I hope Diablo 4 doesn't also run aground with that.
It's all desert, so we have dungeons filled with sand. All the dungeons are particularly placed to make sure that they feel like this is a thing that could be in this part of the world. It fits here, it belongs here.
We definitely redesigned some of the monsters. For example, the Fallen family has gone through a major redesign to make them feel more grim, a little scarier, a little darker, to match the tone of Diablo 4.
Monster families are a way to describe the group of monsters that create a combat experience. A lot of times they'll be brutes and swarmers, melee or casters, and that's the term that we use to sum up the vampires or the drowned or the undead.
Wow, that looks fantastic.
And all of them have unique abilities, but they all synchronize together. They bolster each other and improve how they work on the battlefield so that every time you fight a pack of, let's say, goatmen, it's always different.
We wanted to make sure that the monster...
That is really good, and I don't think this is going to be a problem because I don't think this game is going to be as complex as something like Path of Exile, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It doesn't need to be as complex as Path of Exile. Honestly, when I did play Diablo 3, the reason that I wanted to play Diablo 3 is because it was not Path of Exile. So what I would do when I was rotating through ARPGs very often was I would play the new season of Path of Exile until I was starting to get to a bit of burnout there, and then I would switch and I would play some Diablo 3. And that's because I didn't need to use my brain as much to play that game. And I'm not saying that, again, in a bad way. It gave me what I needed to still be able to play an ARPG, but not have to melt my brain to be able to do it, right? So what they're saying here is that potentially what it sounds like to me is that enemies will have different affixes every time you can go against them, right? So, maybe we've seen this in Diablo 2 also. Maybe they'll have like enchanted, lightning enchanted, fire enchanted, cold enchanted, and different things like that. Things that give them more armor, maybe like stone affix or, ghostly or whatever they're going to be. In Diablo 2 and in Diablo 3, you never really ran into a problem because it wasn't that complex at that time to where you got a bunch of affixes mixing together that made like literally unkillable things. Whereas in something like Path of Exile, there's a chance that you might get this combination of auras and affixes between groups of mobs that make them into literally one-shot machines that run at 600% speed that you can't kill and stuff like that. That's just something that I'm sure Diablo 4 is going to be aware of, and hopefully that they can keep those things in mind. As a usually hardcore player myself, it is really unfortunate when those things happen because there's no way to predict them, and you just end up losing your character over something really stupid.
Our families all felt like they fit in their environments, and so our creature team did a really good job of making these different versions of them that have adapted to their environment. There's snowy goatmen and fractured peaks in some of the colder areas versus lightning goatmen around dry steppes and kind of the more arid areas. Hawazar has a lot of poison spiders.
Each of the regions has its own kind of flavor, and it's pretty exciting to discover.
We have some really cool new snake men, the Nangari. We've seen snake men in Diablo before.
Cool. Yep.
But
we haven't seen
these
snake
guys
men
are
in a
just
while,
really
though.
twisted amalgamations of
Those look
multiple
much better,
snake heads,
much
even
more
human
frightening.
body parts. We have skeletons, we have undead, we have ghosts. All the things that you would expect to
I
find
like
from Diablo.
that. What was really good about that there is they did a good job at signifying where that attack was going to come from. You know, where you couldn't stand, which is really good.
Twisted amalgamations of multiple snake heads,
sorry, I
even
went
human
back too
body
far.
parts. We have skeletons. We have
So you can see here, you can see where the lines are spreading. So you don't want to stand in that spot. So this character right here, they're probably about to get one shot, where these guys are not about to get one shot. Don't be this player, right? Don't be this person. This looks like a one-shot attack. You can tell by how slow the buildup is until it goes off. So yeah. But it is good that they have clearly defined attacks, at least in this scenario right here, where it's easy to see where the attack is going to be, and you have time to get out of it. And if you do die to this, it's completely your fault because you're somewhere you don't belong.
Dead. We have ghosts. All the things that you would expect to find from a Diablo game.
Spiders have been around in Diablo forever, but the spider host was a cool new twist.
It's a giant spider
no.
that attaches to a corpse and then puppets it at you. And when you kill it, it explodes with tons of baby spiders. And then those little spiders come after you. And I feel slightly guilty about traumatizing a lot of people.
He should feel bad. He should feel bad. He should feel guilty. I hope that he loses at least an hour of sleep over that. That's horrific.
We also have wildlife, deer, snakes, bugs, dogs. You can pet the dogs, by the way.
So many people ask to pet the dog.
You can pet the
It's
dogs.
actually
That's the
a
new
lot of hard
meme,
work
right?
to
Every game
figure
has
out
got to
how
have you can pet the
go.
dogs. It's a fantastic thing. I mean,
You have
it's
so many
being played out
activities
now,
that you
though.
might run into. It could be a stronghold, it could be side quests. You might have key dungeons to do. There could be bounties to pick up. You might encounter a world boss. You might encounter an invasion event of some kind.
We have much longer, sort of narrative-heavy side quests, and we have some shorter side quests, so you never feel like you're always doing the same thing. The pacing is always a little
Look
bit
at that.
different.
That looks-
One of the
that
things that I
looks so
really
good.
loved about our announcement was the by 3 they come cinematic. I was able to build a quest where you actually get to go to those places.
That cinematic was fantastic, by the way. If you have not seen that, by 3 they come cinematic, definitely go make sure you give that a watch. And hell, even if you have seen it, go watch it again. It's so good. It's so good.
You get to go to the town. You get to go inside the chapel. And I work with some incredible dungeon designers to build the dungeon from the cinematic. You're gonna get to go across the bridge that you saw to the actual room where Lilith was summoned. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm super excited to have players see it.
That is that's a risk. They're taking a risk with that, right? Because they made that area into such a iconic area, right? With that cinematic video. If you're going to that area to do something that is, they can make it lose its magic, right? If they send you there to do some stupid little daily quest where go kill the monster in the dungeon, and it's that area where Lilith was revived, reborn, summoned. They can definitely take kind of sap the magic out of that from the cinematic video. So hopefully they're careful with that. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't let players go places where they did cinematics at. I'm just saying that they definitely take a risk with making that place lose its oomph by doing that. It will be nice to see, though.
Sometimes it's kind of nice to just walk places, because that's a lot of the times when you see these little events.
You might find a demonic altar that you need to feed your blood to summon demons to then defeat for all of their loot. You might find a ghost child who's trying to...
That chest animation was not it, by the way. That was that chest animation popping up was very immersion breaking. That was like mobile game chest popping up in this dark, gritty fantasy world.
Find the remains of their parents, and you have to protect them. We have strongholds, which are a sort of large area that you can enter, and it has its own story, its own setup, its own sort of art that sort of tells a very specific story about this location, and those stay unlocked permanently once you've beaten back the darkness.
We did a lot of figuring out the balance between like how much space do we need for players to play through these dungeons versus how much space do we need to make them look cool. My favorite is this one called Endless Gates. It's got these teleporters, and these teleporters actually take you to other dungeons. So you'll end up in a cave, a crypt, or one of the ancients. And every time you go in, it's designed to change.
That would be unique. That's definitely a unique mechanic they could have in a game like this, where it's more like a, kind of like how horde systems work, where you're in an area and you're constantly fighting off enemies that are coming to you. Well, this could kind of be like a reverse horde situation where you're continuously going through these portals, and the difficulty keeps scaling up through each one that you go through. Kind of think of it like chaining rifts together from Diablo 3, Diablo 3, right? So it's like going from like a level 1 rift to a level 2 rift to a level 3 rift, level 4 rift, and the rewards getting better each time, and it's getting more difficult each time, and you get achievements for reaching 10 or 20 rifts or whatever the case may be. That'd be pretty cool.
And there's dozens of villages and towns that you will run into.
The cities and towns are designed to be hubs. They're havens. They're places where
say
you can find other
dozens.
players.
There's a
They're
big
good
difference between
places
one
to do
dozen
all
and
of your
two dozen.
usual inventory management.
Three
Each
seems
region has its
unreal.
main city that you can get lots of side quests and lots of activities.
We've really crafted the world to feel like there's always something just around the corner to find.
That is good, if that is true. My main concern, and this might be a concern because we haven't really heard much about it from the dev team or seen it in any videos, is what is the end game going to be? After I've done the story, after I've done these little side quests and all these little cities and done these little dungeons and stuff like that, one of my characters max level, what am I doing, right? What is the game doing to make me want to keep playing that character? That's the question that I have, and it's not going to be answered in the beta because we can only play up to level 25 in the first area. But that is the question that I'm asking every time I see any bit of content.
In Diablo 4, you actually get to walk Sanctuary.
It's a massive place that you can seamlessly explore with no loading in between zones, which is something brand new.
No
It's
loading
a
in zones.
very
is great.
immersive experience.
What I love about it is that you can go in a direction and you might be searching for a particular quest or an item, and you'll come across a stronghold that you haven't explored before. You'll come across dungeons that have legendary affixes, or you might discover a side quest that you didn't even know about that
So that wasn't
fills
like
in
chain
some
lightning,
bit
it was
of
actually
lore
like
that
a
you actually
seeking
were
electrical
interested in. There's any number of
bolt.
things that can happen along the road to your destination, and that's what I love about having this fast-paced.
There are tons of different types of events in the world. It's been created to feel full of things to encounter, full of secrets to discover, full of characters to interact with, full of stories to find. We have these altars to Lilith that if you can find them, they will give you a permanent buff to all of your characters across the game. There are tons of them hidden everywhere. We also have these massive world bosses that are so big the camera actually...
Altars to Lilith. Permanent upgrades account wide for finding them. I don't know how that feels immersion-wise. I guess the upside is you only have to find them once. And I guess, there's not really a downside to it. I guess it's just a scaling thing, right? Is it going to be the difference between your character being able to do this thing or not do this thing because you don't have these buffs? Oh, sorry, you can't get in on this world boss because you're not 39 out of 39 Lilith buffs. Interesting.
He has to pull out even further, and you're gonna have an opportunity to fight these bosses with your friends
These
or with
bosses are
strangers to
interesting to
take
me.
down these huge world bosses.
Again, for an immersion,
And the team has done
world-building
just an
reason.
incredible job.
So these bosses are obviously huge bosses, right? They say you're going to need multiple players to take them down. I don't know how obviously we don't know how the scaling is going to work on these things. After your max level, max gear, min-max to the teeth, will you be able to take down a world boss by yourself type of thing? Who knows? But the immediate problem that I see with this is how is it going to compare to the campaign bosses, right? So let's just say for sake of argument that Diablo is the final boss in the game, right? He's the big kahuna. He's the he's the guy you got to kill. And you go in, you're doing your campaign, you did all your quests, you go in, boom, Diablo cutscene, you kill him. Okay, you did it by yourself because you're doing the campaign. That's obviously going to be soloable. Now, you're out in the open world and you come across Steve here. Steve pops out of the ground. He's huge. He's got skulls for shoulders. He's got scales on his knuckles. He looks like he's straight out of Bloodborne, right? Like a cleric beast here. And Steve takes 20 people to kill, let's just say. How does that feel compared against Diablo? Why is Steve a harder enemy to kill than Diablo? Why could you solo Diablo, the big, prime, evil Diablo, destroyer of the world, right? The angels have to come down and, he's the guy. And you can solo him because of plot armor, but Steve pops out of the ground and you got to have a group of people with you to do it. So could Steve kill Diablo? Why do we care about Diablo if Steve can kill him? It's going to be interesting to see how they balance that lore-wise.
Making Sanctuary a world worth exploring and a world worth investing yourself in.
There it is. There it is, guys. So we have early access starting on March 17th to 19th. That is only if you pre-order the game. The real open beta for everybody starts on March 24th and it goes through to the 26th. So, guys, if you want to get in as early as possible, this is not me shilling. I'm not paid by Diablo. I talk a lot of crap about Blizzard a lot of the time. But if you want to be able to play Diablo 4 as early as possible and you want to get in on that, then you do have to pre-order the game and make sure you get that taken care of, as there may be some sort of a cutoff. I don't know how that works, but that is coming up March 17th. Less than a month away. So you want to make sure you're ready for that. Overall, I still have so many questions about Diablo, guys. Like, my expectations are on the floor. Literally on the floor. You could step on my expectations. And that is because I don't want to be disappointed by Diablo 4. I mean, I cannot tell you how many thousands of hours as a mid to late teenager I put into Diablo 2, right? PvPing day in, day out. I mean, I did it all. I did the good and I did the bad. I ran bots for gear. I ran pub games to help people level up. I rushed an endless amount of people. Did free Uber carries. I was part of a PvP guild that used cheats at one point in time. I regret that, but as a late teenager, I thought it was the most amazing thing. If you ever got far casted by a Javazon, it was probably me. I was one of those guys. I'm sorry. We all did stuff in our teens, but I put in so much time into Diablo 2 to be mostly disappointed by Diablo 3, right? And it's been so long since then. Now we're seeing Diablo 4, and I just don't want to be disappointed, right? So I'm going in with very low expectations, high hopes, and I'm hoping that this game is going to be what brings me back into the Diablo world, fully back into the Diablo world. Not just playing Diablo 3 because it's the last season or because I don't have anything else to do. I want to get invested in this game like I get invested into other video games. That being said, I know it's not the same team, but it is the same company, and Blizzard recently has a okay track record with their video games. It's not bad, right? The Diablo 3 seasons have not been bad. They've just been kind of plateaued and mediocre, is average. We've seen a fantastic change with World of Warcraft, right? Great things happening in World of Warcraft right now. Dragonflight is a massive success of an expansion. It is a ton of fun to play. I've just recently started winding down from playing it myself. That means I got plenty of time in at where I just wanted to log in and keep playing the game. Now I've done, we've cleared we've cleared heroic Razagath. I am ready to start mythic raiding in there if I can find people to mythic raid with. I've done, plenty of mythic dungeons. I've got my character leveled up. I got my rotation figured out. I'm feeling confident. I've got my gear at a level where it feels good. So now it's time to start winding down and playing other things. The fact is that since I was a kid, Blizzard has been the company that always gave me games that I enjoyed. Now I'm not talking about their in office practices and all the stuff that they're getting in trouble for and stuff like that. I'm talking about the raw video games since I was a young child playing Lost Vikings on the Super Nintendo. I mean, and I've just always loved Blizzard games since then, right? Like they've just given me a ton of things with Diablo 2, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Overwatch. Like they've just put out a ton of games that have always been interesting to me and I've enjoyed playing throughout the entirety of my life of playing video games. And I hope that Diablo 4 is the next chapter in that story, right? And I hope they keep trending in the way that they're trending right now with just putting out hits. Overwatch 2, though they dropped the ball on the PvE part of that game, I wasn't interested in PvE Overwatch anyway. That doesn't really pertain to me. But, I mean, Overwatch 2, fantastic. Dragonflight, fantastic. Maybe we'll see a new StarCraft sometime in our lifetime. I don't know. But I just have hope. Low expectations, high hope, guys. That's all I've got for us here today. I hope everybody is doing fantastic. I'm sorry I haven't put out any videos for World of Warcraft recently. Again, like I said, we're just winding down out of World of Warcraft. There's not a lot going on right now until we have the next big patch. But you will find me on Diablo 3 at the end of this week, and you will find me in this Diablo 4 early access coming up in just a little bit less than a month. And I think I will be doing a more in-depth review of Diablo 4 as a whole over all of the videos that they've put out over the last year or so, where we talk about everything, gearing, skill trees, all of the stuff. So be on the lookout for that, guys. And hey, I'll catch you guys later. Adios, muchachos.